For a great comedy panel, because most of the series you see online are comedic, 80% I think. So I think it's very important to mention that how difficult and how challenging sometimes is to make a web series, which is comic, because comedy is hard work. And as Charlie Chaplin said one day, you don't joke with comedy. So it's like you need to set up everything, because to make a funny movie, you need to write for hours and hours, and then rewrite, and then rehearse with actors. And like if you have a gag or something like technical, you need to rehearse with obviously the crew. So here I introduce myself, Michael, filmmaker, producer, founder of the Dublin World Fest, and I did a lot of comedy myself. I done with Donald a comedy web series called Ash Airways. So Donald is a stand-up comedian from Dublin. Atsushi from Japan. He works with YouTube Space Tokyo. Anna Lane from London, from writer-director of Tony Online. And, sorry for the pronunciation, Tony Kelly, actor, writer for the Her, the Irish series, comedy series, yeah, from Waterford, yeah?
Yes.
So the Vikings touch is here.
That's why I shaved me beard, because it's very ginger.
So it's fine. So first question, like, are you into only comedy, or do you do like drama? Like, why do you like comedy? Like, is it easier for you? Or?
I do comedy because I was told I should. For me, it's just I seem naturally funny. People like laughing at me. In that respect, so I think for me, comedy, yes, is definitely easier for me. It's quite. I think it's a gift you have, or some people have a natural comic talent. I think I have it. So for me, it's a lot easier for me to make a lot of people laugh than it would be to do drama or anything else. You know.
Cool. What about you?
In my case, I think it's also similar. That I actually, when I was first writing the scripts, I thought I was writing a serious drama, and I went to a workshop and I was describing it. Everybody was laughing, and then somebody came up to me and said, "You should become a stand-up comic." I was actually quite offended, you know. But my dad's also a funny guy, and he was a businessman, but he was in the hospital, and then the cleaning lady at the hospital thought he was a comedian. So I don't know. That's what happened.
What about you?
I actually come from more of a horror background originally. That's sort of where I got my start in film, and I think that's sort of, you know, you can't really do a comedy without having so many real life things in it. So I think a lot of the comedy that I write is quite dark in nature, or a little bit twisted or awkward. And I think that sort of really helps to like flavour comedy, not just going for slapstick and things like that, but actually sort of, you know, finding your own niche of how to tell your own jokes and stories. And it was actually a bit easier having to like co-write something. We would write it, if we both laughed, it stayed in. If one of us laughed, the other one didn't, we took it out.
Comedy and drama, I think, is that what?
Yeah, like, you know, why would you go for a comedy show or stand-up comedy?
Yeah, I think comedy for me was always a huge thing. I always remember from being a kid and staying up late to watch kind of comedies, Harry Enfield and stuff, like the British comedies especially. For me, it started out with the loving sketch comedy and then went into sitcom, because I think it's more of a storytelling thing there. But comedy for me is it's almost I find more comedies funny if they're coping with something that you shouldn't be coping with. Like I find comedy in tragedy, I think more so. I think that's where the British comedy comes from. When you see someone who's clearly going through pain and you shouldn't be laughing, but there's always something funny there, I think, you know, more than else.
And like, are you coming, like, I know for Donald and Tony, you are from the stand-up comedy scene in Ireland. Like, did you try stand-up comedy yourself, like in Japan, or like were you just jumping into the web series form?
Well, mine was more like a sit-down comedy. I would go to like have dinner with friends, and I would just tell them what kind of strange thing happened to me during that day, and everybody would just somehow laugh. And then also I did some films and I would do Q&As, but somehow my Q&A became like stand-up routines, and I thought, did I have to raise all this money and get all these actors and make a film? I could just stand up here and talk. So, but I never really did stand-up as like formally. And then with this series, I just started telling funny stories that happened to me to the camera. But then my friends were saying, well, why don't you act? You can act these scenes. So I played myself and I played everybody else that mistook me for somebody else. And I edited it and made it, you know, these kind of short sketch comedies, which is this series.
Yeah, you get that cover, yeah. You can check that on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook.
That by the way was the best plug I've ever seen. That was the best plug I've ever seen. And that's why.
Yeah, and like in Britain or in Ireland, I know that there is a very good stat, like from stand-up comedy to films, like, you know, Simon Pegg, like, you know, we're doing like stand-up comedy and like jump into the film world because he was watching, you know, Tarantino's film and all. And I know you guys, like, I don't know for you, like, you know, would you like to go back to the film or web series, or like? You know,
I do, because I had no acting experience and I have no acting thing, but people have seen me do stand-up comedy where you are acting as a kind of caricature character, and they've said, "Oh, you look," and I've enjoyed it. I think because it's comedy, it's quite fun. I quite like the whole being on set and playing a little character. It's definitely something I would, and I think as we were talking actually with Tony earlier, it being a good actor makes you a better stand-up. You know, it's kind of because you are acting all the time. It's just I'm able to spend hundreds of performances perfecting this one role that I'm doing, which is me on stage. But I'm quite different on stage than I am off stage. So it is kind of, you know, a role in that sense. But it's more in doing more traditional acting is something I would like to do.
I don't know for you, Anna, but for me as a filmmaker or writer, I prefer to work with like a guy like Donald, which hasn't done any acting school, and he's very funny, like, you know, naturally. So then, you know, you can shape, you know, his character, you know, Donald to a character. Like, you know, I don't know, like, have you noticed that, or like?
I think a lot of the people that we worked with on the series were all, pretty much all of them were trained actors. A lot of them went to, including Susie, went to drama school, and I think because it comes, there's a lot more a theatre tradition when we're trying to work with actors, so it's learning how to direct people to be able to not be so theatrical on camera, which is the real tricky thing. And I think there's a tendency with comedy acting to feel that it's a fine line between going too big and not big enough, and it's trying to find that line. But I think for me, like working with people who know what they're doing, and it's sort of, I like the sort of professional level of that, of just sort of, you know, they came in, they got the job done, they were easy to direct because they understand what it's like to work with a director. You know, she was the biggest pain in the arse.
I agree with that, because like how I originally got into stand-up comedy was I was in film school, I was in drama school, I went to film school, I guess, I went in the States, but and I was encouraged to go and do stand-up to kind of explore that whole fear side of things, and like it was something that I had wanted to get into anyway from when I was a kid, and being a comedy writer, it's just that I didn't know how quite to get there, and I met someone who took me through it. But as myself and Donald were saying earlier, like it really opens so many doors for an actor. If you do, even often people who are actors ask me like, what would you give me some advice or whatever, and doing stand up even once is something I would recommend to any actor, because it breaks a lot of doors down in your mind, I think. You know what I mean?
Great. And like in regards to back to the web series, because at the end, you know, it's a WFS, so we need to promote that as well.
Should have bought a flyer.
About the funding, like, you know, how difficult or how easy it was to crowdfund your series, for example, Anna and Atsushi.
Really hard. Really hard. Nobody wants to know. It's very hard as well when it's your very first thing that you're trying to do in this format. Like, this is our first web series. Having no reference for people to say, well, are you any good? We don't know if you're any good. Like, why am I going to give you 50 quid? Like, you know, you could be shit for all we know. So we made our pilot. We sort of privately funded our pilot, and then use that as our tool to be able to then try and anchor the rest of the series out of it, which really worked for us. And we managed to raise enough to be able to sort of get there in the end. But it always comes down to the last sort of half an hour, and you're looking, being like, come on, please, someone to put the last bit into the Kickstarter, the part. But it's, if people don't know who you are or what your track record is, and especially if you're just starting out, it's hard. So I think, be prepared to struggle.
And what about you, Tsushi?
In case of Trick or Treat, I Love America, YouTube Space Tokyo had this set for Halloween, and they were doing a competition with a lot of horror films, but they still had the set available. And Megwin, who is a very popular Japanese YouTuber, he's been uploading images for 10 years every day, mostly physical gag. I didn't know him at all, but this popular YouTuber, because YouTube Space Tokyo, like YouTube Space LA and London, they're trying to promote YouTubers of that country.
Yeah.
So that YouTuber was looking to work with a comedy script. He never worked with a script, he never worked with a director. And a friend of mine was working at YouTube Space, and she contacted me and said, do you have a script? And I'm like, what script? And when do you need it? Well, next week. I'm like, oh. But then she said, well, we have this really lovely set. And then I said, okay, send me pictures. Oh, that looks really good. So I actually had an idea based on a tragedy that happened in America, where a Japanese exchange student actually knocked on the wrong door for Halloween, and he was shot to death, and the person was acquitted and so on. But I actually turned into kind of a satire comedy type thing. Some people are outraged by it, but I mean, I don't know, that's just the way my mind works. And so anyway, I actually wrote this down, and I sent it to my friend, and actually she said this is good. And so the next day, actually, there was an occasion to meet Megwin. I actually pitched him, and I just kind of said, this is my idea. I just kind of, and he was going, and then so I kept talking, and then he said, okay, let's do it. So it was kind of a done deal, and then I thought, this is an English-Japanese story, but I mean, basically we needed an American actor. And you needed a good actor because, you know, YouTubers are not really sort of experienced in acting. With somebody less experienced, that could work. And so on the train going back, I was actually like trying to email this American actor that I know, who's a friend of mine that I actually work with, and it's, are you available? He said, I'm not available on the 11th. Yeah, 11 is fine. So I got the actor, and then basically, so there was no fundraising. They just basically hired me and the actor to come in and be the writer director for this. And we had like 2 days at YouTube Space Tokyo, and we could use the set. But because it was a horror set, I had to also run around and get different props like the balloons and the pumpkins. And you don't have pumpkins? It's like a Halloween set. Let's get rid of this horrifying image, and let's make it more pleasant and so on. So that's how we did it. Yeah.
And what about Tony Kelly and Stephen? Because
well, that's something I was going to chime in with, is that we had no money. We made it with zero money. We didn't ask anyone for money. We probably should have, because we would have made some money maybe on it. But we made the thing with no money at all. Stephen has a camera, and he had some mics and stuff like that. And I called in favours some people that I knew for locations, and some people, actors I knew around Ireland and stuff like that, that I knew were trained as well and knew what they would be doing. Because as what's your first name again? Hannah was saying. Nice name, by the way. Hannah was saying, it is important, I feel anyway, that if we're especially doing a comedy, and we did a mockumentary, so it needs to be real. If you're doing a mockumentary, you need to think, we actually fooled some people into thinking it was a documentary about a real person. And that was essential for the storytelling process, that people buy into it, even if they don't realise they're buying into it. So called in some favours to some people around Ireland who were trained actors and were professional actors and would work with me for free. And we did it like that. Now, saying we made it for free is kind of a little bit of a false hope for people, because Stephen, who's a co-producer, did have a camera that would have been quality enough and did have some mics. But other than that, we didn't spend €1 on series.
And how do you crowdfund your gig yourself? Okay.
I invest. For me, it's a trade. I'm investing in. I'm now getting some money, but I'm nowhere being full-time. A lot of comedians often have full-time jobs because they can't. But I think in terms of doing a web series or something, I think comedy is something that people think, oh, I'll do that, because action, horror, sci-fi is very expensive, but a drama or something like that might be a bit snoozy. But comedy, it's great, but it's also cheap. I'll do comedy, it's grand, it's easy. But I do think comedy of all the genres is the hardest to write.
Absolutely.
Because it is the most writing-based one. You can't rely, and it's also very immediate. Someone could watch a 3-hour drama and you don't know if they've enjoyed it until afterwards. You know, 5 minutes into a comedy and you're like, they're not going for the, you can tell straight away. And I think that's why I think a lot of people do comedy, because if it's going to be a video that's going to go viral, it's either going to be a heartwarming story of a puppy being saved, or it's going to be comedy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who are doing it will go for comedy because they think, one, it's a cheap option to do something, and it's also something that everyone loves, so it might spread, but it's actually quite difficult, I think, to write comedy.
Also, if you're putting together something and you're not really paying people and it's low budget, you want to make something that's going to be fun for
Yes,
everyone to work
absolutely.
in. And if they're going to spend their time working with you, you want to make sure that it's going to be enjoyable for them to do it. I think also everyone thinks they're funny, so everyone thinks they can do a comedy.
Especially in Ireland.
That's why there's so many of them out there, and it's, as you say, like it's one of the hardest of all the genres to write. So
Yeah, and like
really pick carefully.
I gotta jump in on that, like because for example Charlie Chaplin, when he was doing Modern Times, like he was like shooting one scene, for example, 27 times. Like how funny was the set? Was it serious or was it very funny? Yours on the set?
Ours was funny. I mean, we shot it really quite quickly over. We planned, just went in, just filmed it really like hard and fast. We had shoots which we started at 11 o'clock at night, finished at 3 in the morning, and I just think the sort of situations of filming it were so bonkers sometimes. On our very first day of shooting, we did the naked bum scene, and the actor was there, and I mean, I know him briefly from the past, he's someone I've met before, and he was just standing there shot it in my house, and we were like, okay, we need to try and do something to like keep you covered up, and he was like, I'm happy like this. There's a shot of me, and I'm sitting on the floor by the camera because we have quite a low shot, and I'm looking up at him, and he's standing there talking to me, and someone's taking a photo, and we're having this really like, I was being like, yeah, I think the way you're gonna have to do it like this, and I was like, this is insane. It looks like we were shooting some really dodgy porno. You know, my husband's gonna come home and be like, what the hell is going on? So it was, it was fun to shoot. At least I hope it was fun to shoot for everyone else.
Was it fun?
It was really fun. She's paid me a lot. Yeah.
What about the YouTube space in Tokyo? Is it fun over there?
Well, we had very little time and we had to do a lot. It was fun. Also, what was interesting about working with YouTubers is that, unlike a film crew, they will do different kinds of jobs. Because in the film crew, the camera department will do camera, the set, art department will do artwork. But the YouTubers, we had to make a Minuteman. We didn't have a Minuteman. They actually were making it. And we didn't have the numbers, the address numbers.
Yeah.
And then I was asking the YouTube space, you don't have like this kind of magic magnetic numbers, and we don't have it, but you can actually make it from the styrofoam. And like, huh? And they were like, we were cutting it and like, kind of putting the tape and making it. And so they were very creative, and they would just climb up and get the flag up, the main actor. You never have this on a film set. You don't have the main actor climbing up and putting on the American flag or any flag, So unless it's war, I suppose. But it was quite improvised. I mean, it was quick and improvised in that sense. So that was it made it very dynamic.
Yeah. I know, like for a fact now that YouTube open, like obviously in London, Paris, and LA, New York, Tokyo. Like they try to arrange now like a YouTube space at the film studio. So maybe in a couple of years you're gonna have like more crews, more technicians, and maybe it's gonna be like more cinematic in a way to shoot in YouTube space. And what about the hurler then?
Was it fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun, to be honest with you. For me, sometimes it was really fun, and then other times it wasn't, because I was writing it, I was producing it, and I was the lead actor as well. So it was kind of trying to keep on time, and then we improv'd a lot on the set. Like some of the scenes I would write just an outline for, on purpose, just because I wanted, again, it was a mockumentary, so I wanted a lot of the reactions to be real, and I wanted whatever happened in the scene to be real. So, and also comedic. But one or two of the actors were fantastic improvisers, but then sometimes with that there's an overindulgence on the improvisation. So if you give too much freedom, they'll want to improv all day, and then the scene that should be 30 seconds ends up being 6 minutes long. And we had one actor in particular who did that, and he was one of the regular actors, and there's only 4 regular actors, so and I'm one of the men, so one of 2 men I should say, so it was one of the other men, and that he wouldn't stick to the script, that I had to stand up, and despite my seemingly good nature, I can be quite aggressive at times when and I did stand up and I did get aggressive and I did storm out of the studio and I did maybe punch the double-sided glazing on the radio studio. But I think it gets like that though, when you're kind of, you know, when you know what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I don't want to say art because I think that sounds a bit pretentious, but I don't know, maybe just not me, but I knew what I wanted and I couldn't get it. But other than that, like there's so much other times where it was like we had a pub that we were allowed shooting and we had that for most of the night, and you know, some of the lads would be drinking. We had extras in some of the scenes and we allowed them to actually drink. so that we got,
you pay for those rounds.
No way. But no, it was you know, they were getting a bit steam so the takes were becoming more and more real what was going on around. So you know, we had a lot of fun making it as well.
And just a quick question for you,
Yeah.
because you shot in Ireland.
Yeah.
I know how exotic is Ireland,
Yeah.
but how difficult was to shoot outside, like, you know, during a rainy day? I think is very difficult.
Yeah, especially because we the hurler, I don't know if how many people are Irish here, hurling is a sport, so we were dealing with a sportsman in a field and stuff like that. And we shot in the field in the pilot episode, and I'm a soccer player, I'm not much of a hurler. So you see one shot of me hitting a hurley, or whatever you call it, sliotar, the whole way through the series. And some of that was because of my athletic prowess, but a lot of it was because we didn't have a wind guard for the microphone, because we had no budget. And we didn't know anybody to call in a favour for one. And there's a famous line, my name's Gar Campion, and I'm the greatest hurler in the world of Ireland. And I delivered that to the camera in the pilot episode, and we had to do it, I think, 15 times something to try and get less and less wind, and we had to edit it and edit it. So no shooting outside after that.
Yeah, that's why in Ireland it's better to shoot
Indoors.
Like you don't have so many outdoor shots yourself.
I'm trying to randomly rack
Because in
my head
London
now.
it's very sunny as well sometimes.
Yeah, we're really lucky actually. We shot in the summer, and as unpredictable as summers can be in England, we just lucked out every single time we needed to shoot outside. It was just, we had to shoot a garden party scene, and we shot it at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was hot, sunny. It was just brilliant. It was sort of like, you know, clouds part, beams of light. Oh, yes, thank you. You can rain as much as you like the rest of the summer now, I don't care.
And what about yourself?
Yes, I also shot everything indoors with the iPhone, with a lavalier for this Yukata Cowboy series. And then for the outdoor shots, we actually just took stills or videos, but I did a voiceover. So we didn't have to deal with outdoor, you know, noise, and that saved a lot of time. Yeah.
That's right. And did you do stand-up outside yourself? Energy picnic, I know. I guess.
Yes, I did a bit of tent, and it is quite horrible. It's normally we're in it, but they you can have depending on the sound system. We do, you know, as comedians sometimes I've done it without even a mic, and you can just shout. It could be pretty bad, or you could have people doing dancing or having a ceilidh upstairs, and then you're trying to shout over people who are talking, and you're like just turn it down. So it's kind of stand up. You have no equipment really. You just kind of have to go with whatever happens.
Exactly. And about marketing, guys, because like I know like now in 2015 it's very important to market your show. So how do you have like a team? Obviously without budget, you know, you do it yourself, and we did it. You know, we saw it like the previous masterclass, like Ellen from the PR. From the Irish Academy was saying that, you know, you need to do your PR yourself, then, you know, you can have maybe someone who help you out. So how do you deal with like all those, you know, social media channels like Facebook and YouTube and Twitter? Like how do you manage those channels yourself? What about you?
I don't really. I have a Twitter account, I have a Facebook. I don't have a Facebook comedian account. It's something I have, and I don't even have a website. It's something that I'm planning to do. I've been doing comedy about 3 years now, so I'm kind of moving to that. But as a stand-up, I'm marketing every time I go on. How I get work is often by simply sending a clip. So it's like doing a short series. It's me, a 20-minute clip of me performing, and that's me marketing myself. But there is with stand-up as well. There's a lot of marketing outside of that. But I think with comedy specifically, again, you can send a 30-second clip and people say, I like that. You know, comedy is very instant, and you need to get, and I think it is quite good for marketing purposes doing comedy, because you want to grab someone's attention very quickly, and you want them to say, oh, I like this, I might, you know, and often they're like, after 30 seconds, like I find doing stand-up, the audience will judge you within 30 seconds, and afterwards they'll go, or, oh yes, I'd like to, and I think comedy is very important. That's why it's so important to be able to catch someone's eye, and with things like drama and different things like that, it's very hard to do that. But with comedy, you can get people hooked very quickly and say, actually, I might try and invest in that, you know, even after only a 5-minute little short, you know.
Oh, and Sushi, just
Yeah,
how do you market yourself?
Yeah, I mean, this year I made my own website, and then I started, you know, open Twitter account and so on. And actually, since like this summer, I've been, you know, this is like the 7th or 8th festival I've been traveling to. Like, I try to go to every festival that's humanly possible without like crashing. Yeah, I also printed these, and I dress up like this, and not only at the festival, but sometimes I go out and you know, get other people to take pictures of me. So I wrote people in you know, Sicily and you know, Bilbao, and then upload these pictures. We upload something every day, either whether it's a still or a vine. And I also make, we got this T-shirt which is available for sale if you want. I feel like that.
There we go.
And so I've been doing this during the trip, like for 3 weeks. I actually planned the 3-week, you know, uploading schedule, and I work with a social media coordinator who, like a part-time person who helped me put them up. But I have to be the one to get the pictures, so I still do lots of selfies,
Yeah, the material.
and then like have to come up with some lines, you know, like what's a funny line, and I can't always come up with it, but I try to keep it consistent, and so that's what I've been doing, and so we'll see what happens. But yeah, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, yeah, basically the main things.
But I think, you know, is one great example of, you know, like Sushi, because you always, you know, wear your costume, your uniform, or, you know, cowboy, you know, outfit to every festival. You know, like you've been to Miami, you recognize yourself in your costume. Like everybody recognize your character, and I think it's like one, like it's the greatest product placement, I think, in the webfest, because like it's, I remember like Sacha Baron Cohen, you know, when he was doing Borat or Ali J, it was like, you know, he's doing his character, like, you know, in the real life, you know, he was the character. So Ali J or, you know, Borat, and he's, you know, I think it's like comedy-wise, I think it's very unique to advertise yourself through characters like this, you know. What about Tell Me Online?
I think for Tell Me Online, it was really about trying to really quickly get to know who our audience were, and I think as well when you first start putting out tweets and Facebook status and things like that, especially if it's a comedy you're trying to sell, I think we've realised that you have to make everything that you put out funny as well, like to keep that. If we've tried to do some more serious posts and things, so they just don't have the same tone to them, and the feedback that you get from it is so much less than if you go in like, here's a joke, it's like funny, just keep it going. Knowing who your audience is the most important thing. Just you have to know what they're like in order to be able to sort of actively reach them. And we've sort of discovered that, you know, it's like anything on Facebook. If you see that people are doing well, you'll like it once or twice, and then as soon as it carries on going, people are like, oh, shut up, like overachieving things, like, you know, I feel miserable about my own life. Like I do as well. I've seen someone else doing something, like, oh, piss off. So it's a kind of fine balance between actually being able to keep people informed about what you're up to, but in a self-depreciating way, so that you don't irritate people. I think that's the kind of the British way, you know.
Yeah.
And Irish. Yeah.
How do you do that actually? And how do you then balance, like?
Just from the comedy postings, I just the way that we phrase things, you know, we'll make sure that if we say, oh, we're doing this at the moment, but you know, there's a way to sort of bring in something about it, like not so much like, wow, you know, we've done nothing for months now, and like, oh, one good thing, but it's just our audience like.
You also post disasters as well as achievements.
I think we post a lot of disasters.
Yes.
And the other.
Yeah, the horror. We were lucky at the start that I had kind of an existing following that we could build upon. and that got an initial kind of a buzz going about it. And then at the time I had a PR agent in London, and she did a press release for us that we put out there, and a local station offered us the chance to launch the web series on one of their live shows. So we had an hour, and I was the guest host of the show, and we launched it. Now today, the Hurler's over 2 years old now at this stage, which is crazy, but I think if I launched it today, I would take a totally different marketing. But I think in that 2 years or 2.5 years, web series and marketing and web series have come along so much in that short space of time that it's incredible. But we did that at the time, and we had Hurler t-shirts that we launched on the radio show, and then to everybody who shared the post on the Facebook page, we would pick 5 out of the first 100, we would give them t-shirts. So that got us going as well. And I think the idea at the time of there being a GAA style web series in Ireland that was a comedy about a fake hurler, that people were like, it was a really different thing at the time. And the Joe.ie, Balls.ie, and all the sports, the independent sports websites, for some reason got a hold of it. Like I posted the video and we launched it, and I went to bed, and the next day it already had 2,000 views or something like that. Like the next morning when I woke up, because all these independent sports sites had got a hold of it, and it just kind of spiraled from there. Now, without getting into my own story, I think holding on to the PR agent in London would have been a really good idea, because she would have been great. But I had a private problem at the time with a famous singer in Ireland, and we got into it in a national newspaper, and I wanted to sue over what was written, and she didn't want to sue, and we parted ways. So I think if that hadn't happened, and that's looking back, it would have been a little bit bigger than it was. But that was a big help. But I think t-shirts, flyers, as has been said already, the costume in itself is the best form of advertising, because when I unfortunately couldn't make it up because I'm in Waterford on Friday for the launch, but when I saw the pictures, I saw you straight away, and I went, I know him from Miami, and I was only in Miami for a couple of hours, and the awards, that was it. So
I think you're great and all that stuff. I like Frankie Boyle, but I don't do Frankie Boyle type humour because it doesn't suit me anyway. So I kind of think that I suppose for me as a comedian, I have to understand that what I like and what comedians like may not be the same, because we get desensitized to humour. And I think it's when you're filming something, you do a take and there's a joke and it's hilarious, and then after the 48th time you're like, was this funny in the first place? And that's why improving, I think, also tries to, because you're trying to keep jokes. If you keep hearing the same joke over and over again when you're filming, you're like, oh, was this funny in the first? You need to have faith in the script, I think, when you write it.
I think
that it was funny the first time, and you have to understand, because I've done material so many times now that I'm like, I don't know if it's funny.
It's like, when you make a film, like, you watch, like, you wrote, or you got the script, and then the first time you read it, it's funny. The second time, the 5,000 times, it's not funny. I want normal people and comedians, like I think like. Comedy is about nature, and everything is surrounding you. Like you observe, comedians or comedy people observe more than regular people. I would say. So that's why then you take notes and
But I think that part of the dark sense of humour thing is comedians often see things in a different way. As you were saying, I often do that, where I will give my opinion on what I think of children, and people will laugh because a normal human being wouldn't think that way. That's what makes it. We often have a different perspective on things, and that's where comedy kind of comes from, is being able to view something from a different way.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I like a lot of Woody Allen films, and I also like kind of Seinfeld humor, like he's talking about how the socks is caught in the laundry dryer, and many of the things that I have in You Got the Cowboys also like this, like how I taking elevator in Japan is taking elevator different from taking elevator in America. Like a man goes out first, a woman goes out first, and I don't know who should go out first, and the elevator door closes, and can't get out. So these kind of things come quite naturally to me, and then I wasn't so aware of it, but I guess there's some kind of more like physical humor too, like Chaplin or Harold Lloyd or this kind of thing. I don't really think of myself as a physical comedy person because I'm actually talking quite a lot until people come to the show, or so on. But I think there are different influences. But as you were saying, that it's mostly like you just have your own sense, and so you almost can't change. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna be trying to be a comedian like somebody else,
Yes.
because you just have your way of, I mean, I wasn't even trying to be a comedian. I thought I was a film director, but somehow, you know, now I'm like a street performer, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where when you first start out and you're directing, you feel, you think, oh, I'm developing my own personal style. I think you obviously you do as you go along as a director. And then as soon as you put it out there, people go, it's so like spaced, it's so like Edgar Wright, it's so, and you're like, actually, yeah, like, we kind of knew that we had elements of that, and we're, you know, big fans of Edgar Wright. And I think that was something we always, or had a couple of shots that were very much directly inspired, but then as a director you sort of take that and mould it into your own thing. But it is sometimes quite strange and frustrating when people are like, wow, it's just like this. You're like, no, it's not, it's just like my own thing. I haven't even seen Spaced. No, I should have
You haven't seen?
I should have seen it.
Ah, shit! Best show ever.
But we like, I mean, the awkward humour thing is something that I like as well, because it's my own style of what I find funny, and awkward situations, again, the kind of British-Irish nature is like awkward things I find hilarious. So the more we can put in about that, it's then better, and I suppose things like The Office sort of did that so well. So.
For me, I have different influences for being a stand-up, and I have different influence for what we're doing here. So for what we're doing here, like for the web series or a series in general, for my writing, especially for this, I think anyway, the Larry Sanders Show for me was a huge influence on me. Even as a kid, I don't know if people know that it's not a really well-known show. Gary Shandling did it, but it was The Office for me like was huge. When I saw The Office, Ricky Gervais' Office, I was in college. I was 18. I started college. I saw, this is a true story. It's going to sound ridiculous. We ducked off college to go drinking in someone's house at like 2 o'clock in the day. And my friend said, you have to see The Office. I went, no, it's stupid. That fella pisses me off even looking at it. I said, no, watch this. I know you're humour. You'll find this funny. He turns it on. I watched one episode, and the next day, we ended up watching like all of it. But the first episode, I knew I was hooked, and the next day I dropped out of college because I said, why am I in college doing business studies when I want to be a comedy writer? Do you know what I mean? So it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I dropped out of college because that's a true story. That's how insane I am. So, but when you find out that the Office was directly inspired by the Larry Sanders Show. Because there's a character called Hank Kingsley, who's played by Jeffrey Tambor, who's now in Transamerica and he plays Hank Kingsley in The Office, and his character is the kind of character I think is unbelievable, and it's that awkward humour where you shouldn't be laughing. This is the most horrible moment in this human's life, and we find it funny for some reason. And it's when I got back into watching that again, I said I want to have a character like this. Because he just makes me laugh so much. And again, with the character. And then to a lesser extent, where I don't think gets enough credit, is Steve Carell's character in the US Office. If there was no UK Office and it was just that, he would be one of the best comedic characters of all time. But particularly UK Office and Larry Sanders for me were two biggest influences on the horror.
And like, what do you think? Like, we go 5 minutes, yeah? Just a quick question, like, have you got any what do you think about the future in regards to comedy? Like, because like what happened in Paris last week and what happened with the violence, happening everywhere, like in the Middle East and in Africa and tsunami in Asia and other things. Do you think can you laugh about everything? But like there is a great comedian who passed away years ago in France. He was saying you can laugh about everything, but not with everybody.
I think that's the spot on answer. I think I would always say to everybody that you can laugh at everything because why not? But then again, now I'm breaking my own rule because I don't think anything about what happened last Friday is funny. You know what I mean? Like before that, I would say to you that someone could tell me a joke, and no matter if you said it just to me and it was just me and you, I'd probably laugh. But now I know if somebody told me a joke about what happened last Friday, I wouldn't find it funny, no matter what it was.
I suppose it's not about laughing at what happened because it was terrible, awful. I think the way to be able to combat how much horrific stuff is going on in the world is to to just keep laughing and keep,
Yes.
you know, sort of poking fun at you know, at the people who are instigating this and things like that, and just sort of not letting them terrorise us in that way of us being so scared that we lose our sense of humour.
Well,
Like, comedy is the ultimate thing. If you can laugh in the face of you know, death, really, like, then you're doing well, in my opinion.
That's the nail on the head there. It's not the situation to laugh at, it's the people. I did see someone sent me a meme, and it was apparent ISIS people, but they had photoshopped whatever message they had on their flag into something that was completely ridiculous, and it really undemonized them. You know, it made them almost juveniles
Yeah.
in my mind. That was something that was a sandy way to look at it.
You can laugh at something and it strips it of its powers.
That's what I mean.
As well.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's like a Dementor
Yeah.
in Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
but I think
If you laugh at it, it goes away.
I think because I do stand up, so it's like doing a web series live. They react.
That's
They react
on
live.
Twitter, 140 characters, I think, you know. It's
Right. I for over a year I did a joke about 9/11. I do inoffensive jokes about offensive subjects, is how I put it. And I've never gotten booed, I've never got anyone to complain, I've never got anyone. But I did it on 9/11, not the actual 2001, but the anniversary. And someone said, oh, that's a blah, blah, blah. And I point out, well, I said, the other 364 days, no one complained, so why would you complain now? I think people, if there's a certain tragedy or something, there's going to be, it's not necessarily, it's whether the joke is funny enough. When you're doing darker humour or about certain subjects, it just needs to be funnier in order to break that. Like if I do a stupid joke that's a pun, if it's about chicken, people will go, oh, silly. But if it's an offensive subject, people go, oh God, that's horrible. You know, so a joke needs to be funnier in order to come, like someone's doing is actually just to think of someone. Lily Savage once did a joke about, it got to do with the Brookside storyline. Many years ago there was a daughter being attacked by her father or something like that. So they killed him and they buried him under the garden. And the joke that he was doing on stage was about, of course that's how normal, it's meant to be a real life soap opera about real people, and that's what they did. They didn't go to the police, they didn't go for counselling, they just killed him and buried him under the garden. I remember my mother was saying, that's horrible, you should not make a joke about assault and incest. That's not the joke. The joke is about the overreaction. It wasn't realistic. You don't do that in real life, kill someone and bury them. You go to the police, you do something. So it's sometimes you see about a joke. Jimmy Carr had a joke saying that, or was it Rick Gervais actually had a joke about, he said, I went up to an old granny and I mugged her. And he goes, I'm only messing, I actually killed her. Now the joke isn't about killing her, it's about the juxtaposition. You think he's going to say something, and it's about what is often the subject itself isn't actually, it's how you're doing it or what the joke
One
is.
of the best things I've heard about comedy and stuff like that is comedy is about making people feel comfortable in the uncomfortable. And that, I think that really sums it up kind of.
Yeah, a friend of mine was telling me about how she was almost attacked in a laundry room in her apartment in Boston, and then like the super came with a bat, and anyway, I don't know if there was actually an assailant or not, but after the whole time I was listening to this, I go, okay, but so do you do your laundry now, and how do you do your laundry? And I mean, I was just like a kind of I wasn't trying to be funny, but I just was my reaction, like, so what does she do with her, where does she do her laundry? And then she just kind of laughed, and then it was just kind of diffused it. I wasn't even trying to diffuse it, but it was just like kind of a reaction that it just kind of gave it another slant, because of course, this horrible thing happened and everybody's like on the social media, okay, no, you should support this, you should do this. And so they're just basically going on the same thing. It's just going on and on and on. And it's like, well, yeah, okay, but I mean, like, okay, but why don't you look at it from this angle? And you can look at it from many different angles. I mean, the whole point of comedy is really just to try to like get people to like look at something and just laughing. It's like, so I mean, if I had enough energy, I could just be like war zones, just telling jokes all the time, except I'll probably get shot first, because I can't dodge all the bullets. But, there are these kind of things that you could actually think of. So I mean, it's not that there's all this disaster and tragedy, so comedy should go down. It should be more and more comedy, more and more funny things happening, more and more dancing, So I mean, that's how it should be,
Indeed. So we need to wrap up now. So thank you very much, guys,
Thank you.
for those, you know, Canadian in Ireland, in the UK, touring in the UK. Atsushi, you said like Cowboy,
Randomly touring.
Anna Lane from Tony Online, and Tony Kelly from the other.